By the end of the year, certain Ontario grocery stores are actually going to be able to sell 6-packs of beer in the province. But not everybody is happy with the news, folks. For example, the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, they are right now running fear campaigns on the radio, suggesting that the impaired driving rate in Alberta is 3.5 times higher than that of Ontario, ostensibly because there is privatized liquor sales in the province of Alberta.
In Alberta, you can buy alcohol at the grocery chains. And in Alberta, it's 3.5 times more likely that the person you pass coming out of the parking lot is driving drunk. Do you want to make that kind of a trade-off in Ontario? A little bit of convenience for a whole lot of pain and suffering? The Liberal government's plan to sell alcohol in hundreds of grocery stores will make booze easier to get than a double-double. And that's just not right. A public safety message from OPSEU members at the LCBO.
Well, this isn't the first time the private sector here has been vilified for wanting to sell alcohol at a private facility. For example, who could forget last year's infamous beer store campaign?
Of course they're good kids, but they are still kids. So what if we made it easier to get alcohol?
Hey, boys. Yo. Whoa, look at this now. 54.
Got everything.
Oh, yeah. There you go, boys. Have fun tonight, boys.
Oh, we will. Later, Al.
Alcohol in convenience stores? It's just not right for our kids.
Wow. But folks, is it true what OPSEU and the beer store are suggesting, that the private sector is too irresponsible to be entrusted to sell alcohol? Well, we endeavored to find out. Well, folks, I'm in front of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union headquarters here in Toronto, and this is the organization that's been running radio ads suggesting that the impaired driving rate in Alberta is 3.5 times greater than that of Ontario, ostensibly because in Alberta you can buy beer, wine, and spirits in the private sector channel. Well, for a week now, we've been trying to get someone to explain the source for this statistic, and we've had no luck. None of our calls have been returned. So we've come down to OPSEU headquarters to see if we can somehow get someone with this union on camera to explain why they are running this ongoing fear-mongering ad campaign. With Greg Hamera, Communications Officer with OPSEU. And Greg, in general terms, what is the issue when it comes to the sale of alcohol by the private sector?
Well, OPSEU takes a position that's shared by MAD and by Arrive Alive, that we don't oppose alcohol sales in supermarkets, but like MAD and like Arrive Alive, two very well-respected public advocacy groups, we believe it should be the LCBO that retails inside a Sobeys or a Metro.
Now, you have an ad campaign running about the impending rollout of liquor stores to the grocery chain. However, what I don't quite understand, Greg, is that since the 1960s, there has been agency stores in rural Ontario selling beer, wine, spirits. Right now, there's more than 200 of these stores. They're not beer stores, they're not LCBO stores. Why can an Ontarian in rural Ontario go to the private sector chain and buy this product and not one in a more urbanized environment?
Well, in fact, the agency store program goes back to 1962. And if you look at the mandate of the agency store program, it was restricted to locations north of the French River. So that would be outfitters, small grocery stores, and a business case can be made that in remote communities in northern Ontario, the LCBO can't justify a standalone store. So they introduced the agency store program.
But Greg, if we get back to the social responsibility argument, as you said, since 1962, there has been these private sector stores selling alcohol, and we visited a few last week. We didn't see, teenagers drinking Colt 45 in the parking lot. We didn't see people being served underage. In fact, they have an under 30 program, which is even more of a benchmark than the under 25 program by the LCBO. Do you have any, statistics, even anecdotes that there's any kind of irresponsibility happening at these agency stores with the customers?
Well, what I can tell you is that when you go into a real LCBO location, right on the cash register there, electronically, they can enter that they're refusing sale to a minor or to an intoxicated person or a third-party purchaser. It's right on their cash register. That is not the case with agency stores.
I can't find any stats, too, that when, say, an LCBO store sells to a minor or sells to someone who's impaired, whether the employee gets suspended, whether the store loses its license, temporarily to sell booze. Do any of these stats exist? Because I can't seem to find that.
Are you talking about the agency stores?
No, the actual LCBO stores.
Well, I think you have to, let's take a step back and understand that with a well-run business operation like the LCBO, there's no profit motive involved for the person at the cash register or the person who, stocks the shelves or whatever. In the case of agency stores, and frankly, in a privatized system, as you might have in Buffalo or New York State or Alberta for that matter, let's just paint a scenario here. You're 20 years old and your 17-year-old cousin comes in and it's 9:30 at night. And all the 17-year-old cousin wants to do is just buy a six-pack. I'm not saying buying bottles of hard liquor or anything like that. Okay, human nature being what it is. I don't have the statistics on that. I know that we've brought this to the attention of LCBO management, that we'd like a stricter reporting at the, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that they don't do check and refuse in agency stores.
2 years ago, we did an undercover report where we had a 15-year-old boy go into 3 GTA LCBOs and buy a bottle of Sambuca hard liquor. This was reported. Nobody was suspended. No store was, temporarily closed down. If that had been a private sector store in any of the communities in Ontario that sell that, there'd be hell to pay. I'm just wondering, why is there this double standard for the government-run liquor stores?
Well, I don't agree it's a double standard. I think the LCBO does a very good job, and its employees do a very good job of practicing social responsibility.
I can show you the video of the child buying the liquor.
Well, even the best baseball hitters don't bat 1,000.
Well, that's what Greg Hamera had to say about the issue, folks. One thing he wouldn't talk about on camera, however, was that statistic in the OPSEU ads, which states that someone in Alberta is 3.5 times more likely to be an impaired driver than in Ontario. The reason the people responsible for that stat and for the ad campaign at OPSEU are not available. We ventured out to a rural Ontario agency liquor store to see if any of OPSEU's fear-mongering had any merit. Well, I'm with Dave Bryans of the Ontario Convenience Stores Association. And Dave, as you know, the government is going to roll out beer sales to grocery stores in the months and years ahead. And already OPSEU has a fear-mongering ad campaign. I guess nothing that you're not familiar with. Last year we had the beer store depicting convenience store operators as people that would aid and abet minors to get alcohol. What do you make of it all?
Well, it's a game of protectionism. LCBO, OPSEU wants to protect jobs at LCBO. Beer store wanted to protect their 3 foreign owners. So everybody in that has a protectionist level to them finds fault with something that goes on in selling alcohol. And we all know we're standing here in, I think, Vineland, Ontario, in this small agency store and an Avondale convenience store, and there's never been an issue. And there's never going to be an issue because we do a better job at age testing. We do a better job at ensuring that no one gets sold if they're under the influence. Our employees are properly trained. So all it is basically, as you said earlier, fear-mongering. Let's find a way to have doubt put into it. But the doubt isn't there. These things haven't happened in over 200 stores in Ontario.
Mark, you may have heard the OPSEU radio ads where they're linking more privatized sales of alcohol to a higher impaired driving rate. With your experience in selling beer, wine, spirits, has that been the case?
No, not at all. It's we're really diligent on age control. If they don't look 30, they get ID'd. If they don't have it, they're refused. If they're intoxicated when they come in here, refused. So, and everything's documented, so if something goes wrong, there's a complaint to the LCBO, they'll call us, and it's all right there in writing, so there's no problem with that stuff.
And tell me, Mark, what would the penalty be for your operation if you were to sell to a minor, say?
Well, it could be a huge fine, and you could actually lose your privilege of selling it.
So in other words, the amount of profit you'd get off a case of beer, it's not worth the penalty in terms of thousands of dollars in fines or losing your business license to sell this?
No, it'd be huge.
Well, so much for OPSEU scare tactics, folks. We've been at the Avondale food store here in Vineland, Ontario for a couple of hours, and we haven't come across an increase in impaired drivers or, for that matter, a bunch of 16-year-olds getting hammered in the parking lot on Colt 45. But the question arises, why is it that an Ontarian in a small town in this province can go into a store like Avondale and buy a six-pack of beer or a bottle of rum or a bottle of wine, whereas that same adult in a larger centre such as Toronto, Kitchener, Hamilton, Ottawa, you name it, is deemed too irresponsible to make that purchase? It's a question I'll continue to ponder as I listen to the propaganda campaign vilifying privatized sales of alcohol. For the Rebel.Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.